Welcome back everyone to another video. In today's video I want to set up a basic enemy which can use raycast to determine if it's on a platform or not, and I can set different speeds to it, to his behavior, and also his animator will react if it's not moving or idling. And this is all set up by Playmaker, so no code is necessary. So let's get right into it. So I've got the scene set up. I downloaded a free asset. I will put the link in the description so you can follow along. Please download it. And I'm just going to start to make an empty object here, a game object. Gonna zero out the Z because at least I want to be on the Z plane. Checking here. And let's call this the basic enemy. And of course, you can make a folder with all the enemies in it, and I will do this later as well. I will select here right, and I'm going to create an empty below, and I'm just going to offset this one to the left, and I'm just going to call this the left raycast. And I'm just going to duplicate it, Control D, and pull it here to the right, and I call it the right raycast. There we go. So they are inside, and we will fine tune them later. And now going into this walking monster, I'm just going to go into the idle and we'll drag it. See, it's very big. Just first of all, gonna just drag it in, and I'm just gonna call this idle of this. Let's call it monster idle. Save. Yes, and let's call this one the sprite because it also has the sprite right away, and I'm gonna make it a child of the basic enemy. Make sure that I adjust the size, let's say 0.3. It's quite big, perhaps let's make it 2. There we go. And let's make sure to zero this one out at least, that it's exactly below the basic enemy, like this. And then we have the left and the right raycast. We can pull this a little bit now here. Say the right raycast here, the left raycast there. Not so far from the center. Very good. And now to the basic enemy, I just will add some components. Let's add a capsule collider. Let's put the direction horizontal because it's more along, like this. And let's tag this as the enemy body. So this is the body of the enemy. To this one, I will be able to deal damage. And on the enemy to attack me, I will add, like, say, a different collider on his attack in a later tutorial. So let's add this one. And then we're going to add a rigid body 2D. Rigid body 2D. I will collision detection continuous. Freeze rotation of the C is always a good idea. To do this, this is a basic setup. And let's go into the sprite. Let's play this once. And we can see it's very slow, but we can change this in the animator. But this is the monster idle. I want to create one more clip, and this one we will call walking. Let's say monster walking. Monster walking. Where was it? Walking. And I can just select all these except for this. I'm just going to drag it in. And you can see it's walking very, very fast. You can, of course, spread this a little bit so that the basic walk is quite okay. That's good. That's the monster walking. And you can see now in the animator of this sprite, not the other one, that we start with the idle. And what I want to add here is a float of speed. And I just want to have a transition to walking and from walking to idling. And it has no exit time. And speed to walk should be greater than 0.1. And to idle, speed should be less than 0.1. And if we now start the game, fast forward, we can see that the enemy is here idling. Right, what we also want to do is set the sprite render, let's say on the player. Let's pull it in front a little bit so it's in front of the box, depending on how your setup is. This is good. The monster idle is a little bit slow. We can adjust speed here, adjust it how you see fit. Also, when it's walking later, you can easily adjust the speeds here and make different animations according to what's available. So now that we have the basic setup of the animator and the animation, let's add the FSMs which control the movement. And I'm gonna add a FSM, and this one I will call get speed, because I want to know for my animation if it's actually walking or idling. So I'm gonna start with this one. Let's call this get speed. And we have to add a couple of different topics. Get velocity 2D of the x-axis, and we're gonna make a new variable here, and let's call it just the horizontal speed. And we're going to do this every frame. And now we want to set the float value, and we want to set the float value of actual speed, and this is based on the horizontal speed, also every frame. And then we're going to add a float absolute. I know it's quite complicated, but this will be then the actual speed every frame. Let's put the right order. So we get the speed, then we set the float value of the actual speed, and we make absolute numbers out of it. And then we set animator, animator float. Float. Where is it? There. And let's put this as the end, because we have now an absolute number and not, let's say, a negative number anymore. And we will just have now a speed, from 0 upwards. And we're going to use the sprite here, and the parameter should be speed. Usually you can find it, but it didn't update the animator yet. If I play once, I will probably be able to just click here, and I will find the animator speed. And I'm just going to do this every frame as well. Right. So this is the first FSM. The second FSM is to determine the direction. So in which direction is the player watching. So let's call this direction enemy. And let's start that it will walk to the left. So let's just call this left and add a finished. But before we of course finish, we want to add some stuff here. So do sprite set flip, and I don't want to flip anything. So I'm just going to leave it as it is, because this is starting. But at the moment I go to the right side, then I flip it over. Right, I don't need to push every frame. And here again, I'm going to get velocity. Get velocity 2D of the x. And let's call this the move speed every frame in the world space. Then I'm going to do a float clamp. And you might find some of these topics familiar, as we use a similar for the character controller. And we're going to do the move speed, and we're going to clamp it between -1 and 1. And we will do this every frame. Then we're going to convert float to int. Let's see, float to int, there it is. And again, it puts it on top. And we're going to use the move speed here. And let's make a new value here, call this direction. And the direction is determined by -1 or 1. Right? Also every frame here, because we want to know where we're moving. And then I'm going to add a int switch. And of course it's on top again. Just gonna pull it down. The int switch of direction. And I want one int switch. And because I'm now walking to the left, I want to compare it with 1. Compare with 1, yes. And then I want to send the event, actually not finished. Delete transitions, send event, and let's make a new event. And let's call this one turn right. And we want to do this every frame. Good. And what else I want to add is a raycast to determine if I'm on the ground or not. Raycast 2D. There. And in the raycast 2D, from game object, and we specify the object is the raycast left. The direction should be -90. And we're in the world space, and the distance should be 0.8, but we will check it later. So there will something be pointing down. And we're going to store hit object. And we're going to make a new variable. It's called grounded. And this is a bool. Let's check the variables. Oops. Sorry, that was wrong. As I expected, we're going to store the hit object, and this one is grounded. And if correct, let's remove this one first. Store did hit object, and this one is grounded. And that's a bool. And I want to check this in a layer mask. Whoops, one layer mask, not the default. I'm just going to check the ground layer mask because the platform which I have here should be on the layer ground. So I will only check for that layer. So grounded, and I want to have a debug line. That way I can actually see if there's a line now coming out or not, like that. And as long as it hits, it will keep on updating. And there I have to also repeat interval 1, so it just keeps on doing it every frame. Good, that's the one side. And what we wanted to add here, of course, is then the turn right, add transition, turn right. And I'm just gonna copy this, gonna paste it, and let's call this then right. And of course, let's remove this transition, but we want to, of course, flip here the sprite set, and I want to compare the int with -1 for the int switch again. And the moment here, when I go to -1, so I'm walking to the left, I want to turn left. So let's make an event, new event, turn left. And let's add a transition, turn left, back here. There we go. So at this point, the enemy can get its speed and it can look at the direction. So it knows if it goes to left, I will look here for the ground. Until I reach the ground, and I also say I'm not grounded anymore. And this raycast I will use in the next FSM, on which I'm going to set the walking parameters to actually control if I'm going to the left or to the right again. So let's make one more FSM, and let's call this the behavior or the patrol, or however you're gonna call it. Let's just call it movement enemy. And here the state, we will start, also because I want to start it walking left, let's just call it initiate left walk. And here I'm just gonna say set velocity 2D. Let's remove this one, only the X, and I'm just gonna do -1 every frame. And I'm just gonna wait here, 0.5, very short. And this is actually fully up to you how you want to set this up. You can make here now a lot of behaviors, and the sprite should react to the behaviors. That's the point of my other two FSMs, that I'm actually idling, or I'm moving, or I'm standing still. And that's the point. Initiate walk left. And let's also just go then here left, walk left. And in this one, I'm gonna set the velocity now faster. Let's do -2.5. And again, it can be anything you would like every frame. And now I'm just gonna get the FSM bool, get FSM bool, use the owner, and I'm just gonna use the direction enemy and then grounded. And I'm gonna store the value in grounded. And every frame, of course. And let's pull this down. And then I'm gonna just do a bool test. It's very easy. Bool test. Let's pull this down again. And every frame, and the bool variable is grounded. And if false, I want to finish, or I want to stop walking. I can also just, let's make an event and say stop walking left. And let's add it here, stop walking left. And then I'm just gonna go here. And I'm just gonna say a wait, because I just wanted to wait there a little bit. Yeah? And I'm just gonna set velocity 2D. And I'm just gonna here zero this out. And what we could do is add a random weight here to give it a more natural feel. You don't have to add a weight, you can also make it move straight away back, but let's just do 1 to 3 seconds. And then what we could do is, let's just do finish. There. Actually, no. I'm just gonna copy and paste this one. Initiate right walk. The reason why I'm doing an initiate first is because the moment I'm here at the corner, it will always say I'm not grounded anymore, because my raycast is then in the ear of the character. And if I don't turn it around a little bit, the raycast will just keep on looking down there. Talking about the raycast, I have to check this in 1 second if I actually did it correct. Anyway, let's put here the velocity then to 1. And then I'm just going to copy paste this one here. And going to walk right. And just -2.5. And here we can just say stop walking right. And add this then, stop walking right. Let's remove the left one here. Then I would add the weight again here. And initiate the walk. Now I just mentioned the raycast, and I just wanted to cross-check if the spawn point of the right raycast is still left. Yes, this I had to update here. Great, so now I actually set the basic things, and let's see what the character is now doing. And so we can see here's a raycast, and now the character stopped. Whoops, there was an error. This of course can happen. It's in both sides. Of course, I should specify a game object. I'm gonna flip, of course, the sprite, because the basic enemy doesn't have a a game object, or let's say a rendering or something to flip, a sprite to flip. Let's try it again. As you can see, it is, yes, it is actually walking, but it's not doing the walking animation. Let's see where the issue is here. It's not updating the speed, it seems. So let's have a look at this. Yeah, there it is. The speed should be, of course, then here the actual speed. So I put the parameter. So I forgot to set the animator float speed, and here should be the actual speed. Good. Now let's see what happens. So as you can see, it's now updating accordingly. And of course, you can put this raycast a little bit closer, but I like it to be a little bit distant, so it's not totally on the edge. And now it has just an easy walk in between. And of course, I can just push it down now, I suppose. There you go. And then I should add a animation for that. But I just wanted to demonstrate how to set up this character. What is now nice about this is that if I now make, for example, this platform bigger, just duplicate it once, and I'm just gonna pull it here. Then I don't need to adjust anything in the enemy. So as you can see, it won't stop here now. It will just then continue its path. So I can just drop these enemies all over the place. So this is a very basic setup of the enemy. And of course, I can also, for example, just adjust the movement speed now very easily. But you can, of course, imagine how this is done. Oops, what's happening? So in, let's say, the movement of the enemy, I can, for example, make the movement speed to the left faster for whatever reason, right? And we can also adjust these then later when something happens, a trigger. And that's when I come on the more advanced enemies. So now it's actually walking slowly to the right. And it's waiting there randomly. And now it's going fast to the left. Great. So I just want to stop the video here, and I will continue to further advance it, and I will add a health bar and a tech. Well, let's say that it can damage the player and I can damage the monster to add some basic behaviors to our basic enemy, maybe before moving on to more advanced enemies. Good, thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you liked the video, and see you in the next one. Cheers!